بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. The next section is about the manner of relieving oneself. The chapter in Arabic literally translates into fulfilling a need. The author begins by saying, quote, "It is recommended for the one relieving oneself to conceal oneself from the eyes of onlookers, since it is prohibited for one to uncover one's nakedness in an open space without necessity, and it is obligatory to prevent one's clothes from being soiled by ritual impurities. It is therefore encouraged for one to conceal oneself while relieving oneself. One can do so in a covered place, a cave, next to a boulder, and so forth." Next, the author says, "Distance oneself from people and mosques. It is also encouraged to distance oneself from people so that they may not hear any noises or smell the odor. It is also encouraged to distance oneself from mosques due to their sanctity. The exception is that if there is an owned place close to people or the mosque where money is taken for relieving oneself." Next, the author says, "Seek refuge in Allah. It is encouraged for one to recite the following before entering the privy. أعوذ بالله من الخبث والخبائث. أعوذ بالله من الخبث والخبائث." One can also recite the following: Bismillah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-rijs al-najis al-khabith al-mukhbith al-shaytan al-rajim. Bismillah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-rijs al-najis al-khabith al-mukhbith al-shaytan al-rajim. Next, the author says, refrain from the pronouncing or wearing whatever has Allah's name on it, the Exalted. It is encouraged for one to remove anything upon which is Allah's name, such as a ring that has the divine name inscribed on it. Next, the author says, enter the privy with the left foot first, due to it being a place of filth, and also due to the respect for the right. The author continues by saying, stoop while leaning upon it, that is the left leg, when relieving oneself. This is because it is easier for one to rid the body of waste from the left due to the left side of the intestines being the part where digested food is collected. Next, the author says, exit the privy with the right foot. Due to the respect of entering the place of filth, due to the respect of exiting the place of filth, it's done with the right foot. One is encouraged to exaggerate in covering the private parts, relieving only what is necessary, or revealing only what is necessary. When one sits to relieve oneself in a place where they could be seen, one should lift the garment a little in the case of a sarong. If one is in an enclosed place, such as one's home or in the wilderness, one can remove the entire garment if one fears soiling. It is discouraged, however, to remove more than what is necessary. The author says, if the private parts can be seen, covering them is religiously obligatory, as we previously mentioned. Although it is not included amongst the recommendations in this text, or Al-Azhar, it is mentioned in the commentary Al-Taj Al-Mudhab that it is recommended for one to not uncover the head and shoulders while relieving oneself. It also states that it is encouraged to prepare stones to remove defecation. It is also recommended to wear sandals while relieving oneself, as well as clear one's throat instead of speaking. After mentioning those things which are recommended and encouraged, he then mentions those actions which are discouraged while relieving oneself. The first is to be on guard regarding places that provoke cursing. These places are known as such because if one were to relieve oneself in these places, another person would more than likely curse that one because of the inconvenience and harm caused by such. The author says, as the poet said, the places that provoke cursing include rivers. This refers to the banks of rivers. Roads. This refers to constructed roads and not dilapidated or ruined roads. And mosques. This is due to their sanctity and the frequency of visits. As well as, the author says, places where fruit falls. That is, the trees under which fruit falls. This is due to the frequency of people who come to collect the fruit there, as well as the place where people may seek shade from the sun. The author continues by saying graveyards. This refers to the graveyards of the Muslims, whether righteous or not. However, this discouragement does not refer to the graves of those at war with the Muslims or the graves of apostates. This is because their graves do not have any sanctity. The author continues by saying, and sitting stoops. If one were to relieve oneself in these places with the intention of causing harm, this would be considered a sin. Next, the author says, one should avoid urinating on a ground with holes. This is due to the possibility of something living in these holes and the subsequent threat that may be there. The author continues by saying, and a hardened surface. This is due to the fear of urine bouncing off the ground and soiling one's clothing. The author says one should avoid urinating in places susceptible to wind, because the wind may blow the urine onto the person. The author continues, one should avoid urinating while standing. It is discouraged unless there is a defect, injury, or fear that prevents one from urinating while sitting. The author continues by saying one should avoid speech, that is, while relieving oneself. Instead, if one needs to get the attention of another, it is recommended to clear one's throat. The author continues by saying one should avoid looking at one's genitals or traces, that is, without an excuse, because looking at one's genitals while relieving oneself deadens the heart and increases heedlessness. The author continues by saying, and spitting on it, that is, spitting on one's traces in order to cover it. This is because this resembles the actions of the foolish. The author continues by saying, one should avoid eating or drinking, as well as using the toothstick or siwak, because of the filthiness of the privy and the possible effect on one's health. The author says one should avoid using the right hand, that is, at any time while relieving oneself. The author says one should avoid facing the two qiblas. The two qiblas refer to the Kaaba and Quds in Jerusalem. There is no difference between it taking place out in the open or in an enclosed place. And the author says one should also avoid facing the two heavenly bodies. The two heavenly bodies refer to the sun and moon, as well as turning their backs towards them, that is, turning their backs to the two qiblas and the two heavenly bodies. One should also avoid prolonged sitting, the author says. This is because of the possibility of hemorrhoids. The author continues by saying, it is recommended that after that, one praises Allah. Although the author does not mention the wording of the praise, the wording is as follows. الحمد لله الذي أقدرني على إماتة الأذى. الحمد لله الذي عافاني في جسدي. الحمد لله الذي أقدرني على إماتة الأذى. الحمد لله الذي عافاني في جسدي. And clean oneself with 3 stones, that is 3 times. However, less than 3 is sufficient as long as the impurity is completely removed. The author continues by saying, it is religiously obligatory that one do the dry purification if one cannot cleanse oneself with water. That is to say that in the absence of water, one must use high pure earth to cleanse oneself. This is because water is a precondition for ritual purity when it comes to the prayer. And the absence of water demands that one use high pure earth instead of the ritual ablution with water. Likewise, the absence of water to cleanse oneself demands that one use high pure earth. In the absence of water, it is also sufficient for one to use any inanimate object to cleanse one's private parts as long as it is pure and smooth. It must not be too sharp like a sword's edge, and the inanimate object one uses must also not be the food of a human, the food of jinn, such as coal or bone, nor the food of an animal. It must also not be something deemed holy, such as an object with a divine name, or anything upon which the Quran or any other source of sacred knowledge is written.